This is unfortunate to say, considering Project Eden's Garden has been my hyperfixation for over a year. But I unfortunately have gripes with the story we were going to get in the game. Yes, I have gripes. The reason I have these gripes is because these, in particular, feel like retcons. They feel like retcons and injustices towards the characters we met and fell in love with in Chapter 0 and Chapter 1. So I'm going to go through each and every one of them. Gripe 1, Wolfgang being a Nepo baby. I cannot explain to you how upset I feel about this, but I'm going to try anyway. This feels lazy. It feels wrong. And the reason it does is because, again, it feels like a retcon of the man we met in Chapter 0 and fell in love with in Chapter 1. Remember in Chapter 0 when he went off on Winona? Asking her if she turned in a half-finished exam? An essay without a conclusion? If she even valued integrity? This does not sound like someone who bought his talent with his father's money. It sounds like a man who knew what he was talking about. A man who studied this. And the conflicts he was facing and the way he was behaving felt even more complex because he was an actual lawyer. Because of how lawyers, therapists, officials, all of these can have corrupt views even when being good people. This felt like a good representation of that story. You're telling me now that Wolfgang is a Nepo baby? No, this doesn't feel like Wolfgang. This feels like Byakuya Togami, and I hate that guy. I genuinely can't express to you how this just doesn't feel right to me. I much rather prefer the base story that was written back in 2021. The story of how his father mauled his mother to death after a breakdown, and his grandparents took him in, and then he dropped out of high school and went to law school. This feels like Wolfgang, not the story we were going to get. This feels like Wolfgang, not 2021 feels like Wolfgang, not this. It makes no sense to me, and it genuinely makes me so upset and angry that this was gonna be his future. That this was gonna be a plot twist for him. This feels unfair, not only to us, but to Wolfgang. Gripe 2. Winona possibly being a lesbian. I know, that sounds like I'm being homophobic when taken out of context. But my problem is not the idea of Winona being a lesbian. It's how they decided to do it that irks me. You know when in a TV show, movie, game, or book, they just suddenly decide to say, oh, a character's queer. just to say, oh, look, we're being inclusive. Oh, look, guys, we're being inclusive. Oh, look, guys, we're being inclusive. We're being inclusive. We're being inclusive. Look, guys, we're being inclusive. Be proud of us. We're being inclusive. This feels like that. It doesn't feel like when... This does not feel right. It feels rushed. I've always seen Winona as pansexual. A lady who likes all walks of life, not just girls. Another thing that bothers me is the way Winona is seen behaving around Ulyses. Winona has been a ship in the fandom for a long time. Why only now? They could have given us so much earlier the idea that Winona did not like Ulyses in that way because she was attracted to ladies. Only ladies. But they decided to let this just circulate without corrections? Well, it's Taco and Saze. I guess I shouldn't expect anything, but seriously, they even allowed the voice actors to do skits and fanfics and come up with stuff and be a part of the shipping community when it comes to these two. They could have proved much earlier that they were strictly going to be just friends. And another thing I want to say is that Winona being one-sided is not the problem. Again, it's how they decided to do it. Because even though Winona is one-sided, which I have no problem with, she showed him at least an inkling of attraction that wasn't just being friends or partners. And don't say family, because let me tell you, if I treated my family like that, I would start getting weird looks. You get what I mean, right? This feels like they're saying it just to be inclusive. And the same thing goes with all of the other sexualities confirmed, except for Damon and Kai. And keep in mind, I say confirmed very loosely because no one has a straight answer. What the frick is this yo-yo? Please just get me a straight answer. Please, please, please. I can't even trust the wiki because I found out a few months ago that you can edit. Anybody can edit the wiki. Including me. I could do it right now. So, I can't even trust the wiki. You get what I mean though, right? This feels like you're saying it just to be inclusive. Like just so that people can say, oh, look how inclusive blank is. Just for that clout. And no, lesbian representation and Winona as a character deserve much better than that. For example, gripe number 3, Ingrid and Joan. Now this feels like proper lesbian representation. In the early 2021 drafts, it was revealed that Ingrid was supposed to have a girlfriend named Joan, who she met online during learning her craft in blacksmithing. And this feels so right. Like, this feels natural. This feels like you're not shoving it down any... Like, the Winona being a lesbian thing feels like you're shoving it down our throats. Ingrid and Joan don't feel like this. This feels like proper lesbian representation, and I wish they could have kept Joan in the later game. I don't know if they did. I'm still reading through the doc, but since the story is majorly changed, and even the writer from 2021 said that they didn't hold on to the idea of Joan, I don't think they kept her. And and if that's the case, I really wish they did. Gripe number 4. Killing Ulysses in Chapter 2. Now, my problem isn't exactly him dying, it's the way they handled it. For the longest time, everyone has said that Ulysses will die in Chapter 2 in some way. And while it may feel validating for some people, it also feels predictable. Like, you knocked the rug out, you knocked our socks off with Chapter 1. You pulled out the rug from under us. No one knew how to cope after Chapter 1. And then you decide to do something predictable like this? It feels disappointing. But it isn't just because of that. It's also because of Ulysses' character. Knowing his backstory and how he gets killed by Jean, it feels unfair to his character. And I know killing games are supposed to be unfair. They're supposed to feel unfair, but this doesn't feel like a killing game unfair. It feels like a writing unfair, like a character unfair. You know what I mean? It would have felt so much better if Ulysses was allowed to survive at least up until Chapter 5. This would have been so much better for his character. Especially because, even though it was on accident and he wasn't targeted, the reason Jean even poisoned that bread was to get back to his crew to apparently continue selling drugs. This feels very unfair to Ulysses as a character, and very unfair to the story overall. Speaking of unfair deaths, gripe number 5. Toshiko being executed in Chapter 3. Again, my exact problem isn't with her dying, it's how she died. She died killing Kai, and then Diana has to cover Damon's eyes because the execution was apparently so brutal. This makes me feel icky. Knowing her backstory and that they kept most of it from the original draft in the game, and knowing how she dies brutally feels icky. One thing I do appreciate about this that makes it less of a gripe than the others is the fact that Tozo and Mara even tried to help her, caring more about her than her actual family did. The fact that 2 psychos care more about her than her actual family did is insane. But that is really the only thing I can appreciate about this death. It would have been better if she were a victim. Gripe number 6. Jean and Desmond doing drugs. Now, again, I have to express this multiple times because I know that the internet's going to twist this, but my exact problem isn't them knowing about drugs or even dealing. I mean, I love the way they handled it with Mark, for example. He's a great example of that. But the way they decided to do it with Jean and Desmond, the steroids make sense. Desmond's less of a problem because the steroids make sense. And the occasional mushroom story, the story of a funny mushroom he saw one day in the woods, it makes sense for Desmond. What doesn't is him being a drug addict in general. This feels so out of character, it isn't even funny. But it's even worse with Jean. You're telling me that a good portion of his personality was fake, and his talent might even be fake, because him and his crew are a bunch of drug dealers? What the heck? Genuinely, what the heck? I can't accept this. This feels wrong. I can't accept this. This feels like a retcon of Jean's entire character. I thought Wolfgang was bad, but Jean got it even worse. Like I said, my problem isn't the fact that they know about drugs. Jean knowing about drugs makes sense. He's a ship captain. He's obviously come across them every once in a while. Desmond on steroids, and again, the occasional silly mushroom I found in the woods story makes sense. But the drug dealer and drug addicts thing is what doesn't. Final gripe, Cassidy's death. Like with Toshiko's death, this doesn't feel as much of a gripe as with the others. But the way it was handled is my problem. As revealed by Cassidy's former voice actress Sabrina Twyla, in her story, every friend she ever had just left her. And she felt burned and disillusioned, and it genuinely made me feel sad, because that was how my life with friendships was for quite some time. And then she gets manipulated by the cult that Edward, Tozu, and Mara are part of, and then she's just executed? No breakdown? No remorse? No true... It doesn't make any sense to me, and Cassidy deserved a better outing. She deserved a better outing as a mastermind, especially since she's such a good mastermind. She's such a good mastermind, and her story is so heartbreaking, and then her death is so... Danganronpa? No! She deserved to have a speech. She deserved to have, like, a moment of remorse. She deserved to, like, get out and then, like, admit everything to the press or something. This was what the kind of death she deserved. Not this. Again, my issue isn't with her being the mastermind or her even dying. It's how they handle these things. But again, this is Taco and Saze. So what do you expect? But yeah, those are all my opinions. Again, these are all my opinions. These are all my opinions. You're allowed to have your own. And as a matter of fact, I would like you guys to share what you think. I would genuinely love to hear your opinions on all of these gripes that I have. But yeah, that is going to be it for this video.